I was just talking about you.
Oh, yeah. I was a little engrossed in this book by Kristen, The Complete Software Tester. I have my own personal copy of it over here, making notes and following up on it. This is fantastic. By the way, this book is about 506 pages long, packed with sorts of stuff. I'm a little bit jealous because your book and my book is about, I think, 300. We're going to have to fix that. But yeah, I just want to throw those out there. Kristen is really fantastic. I've actually known her, I'd say probably about a year, but we actually have a friend in common that I've worked with back 7-8 years ago over at Redbox. And by the way, Redbox, although it technically isn't existing anymore, its parent company Coinstar still is doing great guns.
Yeah,
So.
Yeah, like I say, very old guy. People, you can hear for yourself, very old guy. Some of the companies don't even exist anymore. I'll definitely get myself a copy of that book. I'll definitely have to get myself a copy. And I know if Kristen can still hear me, I think we'll look at, to as we say, we'll look at getting a signed copy. So it'll be really
that
cool.
would be awesome. Let's see if we can make that happen. We have to get some signed copy stuff together. Okay.
Yeah, so the idea here, folks, as you hear, is Paul, and today we'll hear from him and his great wisdom so he's going to give us some tips and tricks of low-code test tool using AI. Paul, the floor is yours.
All right. Let me, I'm going to get my screen up here. Let's go share my screen. I think that's the other important thing to do while I'm here. Let's do a share screen. I want the entire window, and I want this screen here, screen 2, and I want to drag this off over here. 1 second. It's always setting up. You never think about what you do because I'm always usually you or I are hosting, and things are pretty easy. Let's go take a look at where I am, and I'm going to go and see if I can get this. We have a screen coming up. And
I can see that. I can see that.
All right. I think we are ready to go. All right. As everybody knows, or don't know, I'm Paul Grossman, the dark arts wizard of test automation. You can find me out there on Twitter, X, Twix, Exit, whatever you want to call it, and all sorts of other social media sites. Look me up. I just recently joined Substack over there, so you can find me over there, and also other social media sites out there. I'm going to be talking about tips and tricks of AI with low-code platforms. But if you are a developer, please stick around because I actually am going to start off with some tips and tricks for AI on what's going to happen, what you can leverage. And some of that is actually relates back to Playwright, as Kristen was talking to. So actually almost any coded environment, you've got development environment. Okay, cool. Sorry, background things going on here. If you want to get a hold of me, I'm at thedarkartswizard@gmail.com. If you want to see my YouTube channels, Paul Grossman, The Dark Arts Wizard. Yes, it was 2 o'clock in the morning when I decided to come up with the longest custom link for YouTube, but I have enough followers. They said, here, have a custom URL, so you can find me out there, or just look for The Dark Arts Wizard. Any one of these things with this background over here with the gears is 99%. It's actually me. You can also hear a little bit more about me on the Automation Guild, the Automation Podcast with Joe Colantonio. It's don't have to memorize 103 over here as the link. This will take you to my very first one 10 years ago, but I am regularly on that conference at Halloween. So just go look for the one that appears at the end of October or maybe the first week of November. You're gonna hear me talk about all sorts of cool stuff and fun things. A little bit about me. As Larry and I have told you, we are the co-authors of Enhanced Test Automation with WebDriver.io, and it is a superhero-themed book. It shows you how to set up your utility belt to be really, really good, and we had a ton of fun putting it together for you guys. I've been working in test automation. It's going on 25 years now. 16 of those years I was working in Micro Focus with HP. That was VB script. I don't really brag about being able to automate with BASIC for 16 years, but I did pay the mortgage. So at least that's I'm just not cool when I do that. I've been working in low-code automation. We'll talk about that for about 4 years. Did Selenium Cucumber for about 3 years and WebDriver IO for about 2 years. And there's all sorts of different languages on that. I've worked in medical devices. I worked at Redbox and also in the mortgage industry and all sorts of different tools, coded and codeless tools, including TestRigger, Context QA, codeless testing with AI. That's with open text over there. So I bridged the gap on the whole thing, and I'm going to give you some good tips and tricks on what's going on with AI. A little bit about what we're going to be doing. I'm going to talk about ways AI can help test automation, both for developers and for manual testers, and how to train your AI, doing some coding standards, and also for manual testers, how to convert text documentation to a formatted syntax, how that works. I've got demos on here to show you off. And so I'm going to say, let's get started. If you have questions, jot them down into the chat. If you're on, you can go into comments if you are watching us from LinkedIn, or you can go into the chat if you're watching us from YouTube. And as Larry said, this will be re-recorded, available right after this session. It'll be back up there, so you can watch it later. If you have to drop, that's okay. It doesn't hurt my feelings. You can watch this later. I'm always happy to be here. Let me get up here, show off my nice, cool dragon shirt, because this is the coolest thing ever. Let's see. So first thing I want to dispel one myth is that, no, there's not going to be a Boston Dynamics robot dog that is going to become a software developer engineering test and is going to automate us out of a job. Let me give you my best example. Is way back in the day, they used to have pickaxes to tear up streets and concrete, but then they got the jackhammer, the air-driven powered jackhammer. And it didn't put the gold miners out of work. It just made their jobs easier. Take a look at Gold Rush. It's been running for a long time. The more technology increases, the more amazing things benefit. So it's just another tool in there. Don't be afraid of AI. It's perfectly fine. One thing is that my personal opinion is AI is like a gold mine that has 20% iron pyrite in it. So you need to be able to know what's fool's gold and what's real gold when you're looking at it. It is not something that will automatically do everything for you. The next thing, one thing I learned today, the jackhammer invented 1893. I did not know that what technology was that old. I figured it was somewhere in the 50s or the 40s. Yeah, been around quite a while. Next thing I'm going to talk a little bit about is what are some of the, there's generative AI out there which can generate steps and test cases and even build suites, description of test cases out there. There are a whole bunch out there that you can take a look at. And in fact, like I said, I always like to do live things. Find ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini. You can take a look at. I'm going to go see if I can switch momentarily to my Slack, and I have quite a few tabs open over here. This actually I wanted to save for last. We've got, I'll do it in the right order here. Here is Claude. I like Claude. I was actually asking Claude to create something that is kind of obfuscated and hard to read. We'll talk a little bit about that later. I got ChatGPT over here, who is, let's see, who is Larry Goddard in test automation. And test automation, we'll do a live demo on that and see how well ChatGPT comes up. Maybe it knows. Not a widely recognized name in the field. That is not going to be very, very good. I'm going to go over to Gemini. Gemini also doesn't know who Larry and Kristen is. I don't think it's going to know who me is. But the interesting I'm saying here is, let's go over to Find. Find looks up Kristen and finds a lot of background and lots of sources out there. So as we are QA testers, I go and test everything. There are strengths and weaknesses among different AI tools out there. One that I can also mention, if you're not sure which tool you want to work with AI, you can check out u.com. And the cool thing about this is that it gives you all sorts of different models. GPT is out there, Claude is out there, Llama is out there, Minstrel, Gemini, Command R, Solar. I don't even know what Dolphin is, but this is actually a pretty cool thing. And by the way, one of the things I like to do in some of my slides is have, I'm a very creative guy. I went to an art school. And I also do use creative AI to do tests to create images. You can actually use a creative image over here to go and create images. So over that, and look at that, boom, there's a nice AI. I could, in fact, what you're kind of seeing behind me is actually an AI generated picture background over there of a pool. That's kind of cool. So I do use it. And the cool thing is you can get the images and everything combined in there. Then there's Pi AI. I asked who is Christian over there, and it gets this pretty right. This is pretty cool. The only thing is this one I call the square-headed girlfriend or boyfriend. And because it always asks you questions, and some of them can be kind of invasive. It will also stroke your ego. So it's a fun little thing. It seems to be fairly intelligent on what it does, but all sorts of different things. But that's our current demo we're going to go with on that. Let me get back to our PowerPoint. A little walkthrough on that, of course. And of course, there's also Copilot. We'll talk about that out there. One of the main things is it used to be really helpful for me. I always said, don't be a lone ranger on projects. Don't be the only guy, because in that case, all your ideas are great ideas. There's no one to bounce ideas off of to get better ideas or get them shut down. And you're like, okay, there's something you're totally missing. That is, I'm sorry, Kristen is mentioning it's a pretty impressive individual she's laughing at. Yeah, it's fun. It's something to play around with over here. So as I was saying, you can now be a Lone Ranger, but still have someone who's pretty intelligent. But you also got to check each other's works when you're doing that. One of the things I like to use AI for is documenting my code. So I'm going to take a look at this code over here. I'm going to take about 30 seconds for everyone watching to kind of take a look at what this code is doing over here and think about, what is it really doing? What is this thing? It's looking for span, eggs and span. Oh, span. Okay. It's looking for an element from the D. I think, well, there's a password. I'm pretty sure that's a password over here, and a button that's doing something over here. If I'm brand new on the project, it would be hard for me to kind of figure out what this thing is doing. So maybe I just go and ask the AI to explain it. So let's go take a look at this. Here's our code, and it's in code, and it's using Codium, and it's basically just explained what this thing is doing. It's setting up a driver. It looks like it's filling in email and password with hard-coded values. That's something maybe we should not be doing with code, at least not in production. And I don't test in production. I don't recommend it. But the number one thing to throw in there is that please don't have your username and password log you into production. The same one that's in testing in the QA environment. That's a bad thing. However, some people are of different opinions whether it's okay that everybody knows the password is password in the QA environment, and it doesn't even match that the process there. Let me get this going on. We'll move on. The other thing is I want to kind of get this to explain what the heck is it going on here. It actually kind of changed up the code, but this isn't quite explaining me what is actually going on here. It did some coding. So I'm going to say, you know what? I'm not crazy about this. I'm going to reject all this because it's not really what I want to do. So I'm going to go and reject that, and we're going to try something else. We're going to go into Codium, and then we're going to ask it to kind of update this code to be a little bit more descriptive. And we can see it's changed the objects. It's to the email field, password field, submit button. Clearly, this is the automation of the hello world of test automation. It's logging in. That's all it's really doing. I also want to use the Codium to go and comment this stuff. This is what drives me crazy. Years and years of previous developers, there's an old joke that says, document your code like the next guy who's going to look at it as a serial killer who knows where you live. That's always been my favorite thing to do there. Another thing I'm going to do over here is going to go into the refactor and actually ask it to do something custom. I want to have a description header put in there. And I could just talk to the AI and say, put in a descriptive header out there, and boom, I've got the header in there. This comes in really handy when you have a big, long library and you don't have time to document the whole thing. Let the AI go through it and do it. Okay, that's our first little demo over there. I hope you enjoyed that. And that's, again, for our developers. So we have fixed our code over here. So I've asked the AI to document it. I've asked it to improve readability by changing the variables. But the one thing you always have to check, like I said, you got to check for the iron pyrite in there. Is this really well done? And in fact, there is one thing that's kind of throwing us off over here, is that this locator out here it's got a div, another div at two different indexes, a list over here, and it's got a link. And if any of these locations ever change for the welcome message that it's looking for, this is going to fail. And then you have to do your maintenance and go back to your page object model and go update that. And of course, automation projects, they get bigger. They have more and more test cases that expand. And you may end up spending a lot more time doing the maintenance to update the page object model. And that can be a kind of a challenge. So for the next part of this, we'll be talking a little bit about a software testing tool. Website. We'll be using the Shady Meadows Bed and Breakfast. This is the RESTful Booker is known. It is from the Ministry of Test out in London. So there are cool guys out there. This is the URL, of course. It's automationandtesting.online, none of which has the same names, but goes this one over here. It is also known as Shady Meadows Bed and Breakfast. It is a registration site, which I really love because, one, you can log in as an admin. And by the way, the user credentials are admin and password. Shh, don't tell anyone. Very secure. You can get that by adding a pound admin, or you can go to the front page and click on the admin site. And you can test your skills on automation with this by interacting with all sorts of different elements. We've got drop-down lists. We've got checkboxes. Somewhere there's a radio button I'm pretty sure that I'm not seeing, but I'm sure it's there. And you can create new rooms. Always by default, there's a room 101. And then as a guest, you can log in and go and rent this room, room 237, the most haunted room in the Overlook Hotel from Stephen King. We'll be there for 4 nights and spending £168 because they moved the whole hotel to London. And they're accepting pounds, and I'm just kidding about they didn't do that, but it is a cool thing to go and validate. And I can go in as a guest and put in my name, my email, my address, my phone number, and go book this. And the really cool thing is every 10 minutes, this whole thing resets. So you can this will exist for about 10 minutes. Your test cases should be taking seconds or up to a minute or something like that to complete. So you can actually create test cases on how to do that. You can click on the home page as a customer, and you can click on admin panel. And let's say all I want to do is click on the Let's Hack button. There it is. Let's Hack is right there. It's very simple. We just have to go and click on it. And we're going to be talking now a little bit more about how to click on that Let's Hack button with different page natural language processing tools. And there's at least 4 of them out there, and they basically say you don't have to learn code. All you need to do is type in plain text, enter some data into a field. You can do that in Test Sigma. Over here, we got AI codeless testing, which is, if I remember correctly, actually it's QTP, UFT, if you guys are familiar with that. It's a layer on top of that can do this. Check our profile, type this into a field. And for this demo, I'm going to do a compare of 2 different tools. There's Context QA, where you can navigate to someplace and click on Let's Hack over here, and Test Rigger, which will also do exactly the same thing. They can click Let's Hack and check the page contains some text on there. If you're afraid of codeless, don't be. I will guarantee you in all these tests, they always talk about no code tools. Not really a thing. There is only, as far as I know, there's only low code tools, which means 80 to 90% of what you want to do is doable in plain English. If you want to click add to cart, you can do it. Select something from a list, enter something to a field, navigate to a URL, and validate. You can say those in plain English, and all 4 of these tools can do it. It doesn't cover everything. It's a Pareto principle, right? 80% of what you want to do in automation can be done with those 4 steps. And then there's 20% that maybe the tool has the capability of doing what you want. As Kristen mentioned, API testing is also quick and fast, and it's something that you want to add in there. All these tools do API testing as well. We won't get too deep into that, but it's in there. But the point of this is that all of these also have a coding aspect behind it. So if there's something that isn't out there yet, you could write it yourself in the programming language of these tools, and then implement it and let it go and chug away. And it's not that difficult because of AI. AI, you can ask it, please tell me when a player for a video is 20% or 60% through. You can write that in JavaScript. You don't have to wait for the development team of the company to create something like that. You can do it on your own. So we're going to click on Let's Hack, right? Except there's one problem. Those darn developers are always changing something behind the scenes. It's not Let's Hack anymore. It's Let Me Hack. What is going to happen here? Well, let's take a look at how Context QA handles this. There's using an AI agent to go and click on Let's Hack. I've told it to go run. That element does not exist on that page anymore. And it's going over to the RESTful Booker. It's looking to click on Let's Hack, and it finds that Let Me Hack is on the screen. There is no actual element called Let's Hack. And check it out over here. It says the AI goes, I clicked on the Let Me Hack button, and it figured it out and passed the test case and says, hey, I'm good to go. I have figured out that there is an element I'm looking for, and the next page I'm looking is to go and log in. And we can see that it's updated the test, even though behind the scenes it still says click Let's Hack. It's still going to show you it'll now be running with that new code. That's not just the only tool out there. Let's go and see how Test Rigger does this as well. Same thing. I've got a test case over here going into Shady Meadows, saying go click on Let's Hack over here. And I know that my last test failed because, hey, couldn't find the element, but I turned on a feature that said, hey, go and find this if it does not exist. There's our description of the failure, saying, hey, I couldn't find it. And I'm pointing out that that is the element that is seen. Let me hack, not let's hack. Do I have to go and update a page object model to do this? Well, let's give it a run over here. Take a look and see our screen captures as they kick in. This is running a virtual machine in the cloud, and this is running on Linux, but it could also run on Windows and Mac as well, and test 4 different combinations of browsers at the same time. This is kind of cool. It's actually already passed because I can see the green button over here, and this gave me a yellow indication saying, hey, I kind of cheated. I used this AI to tell me what was going on. I'm going to look at the extra info and check this out. The AI says, I'm going to generate a new script that says click let me hack, because let's hack isn't there, but it did find a button that is close to what the description is. And it said, I'm going to go change that, with a little head over there. The robot head says, hey, by the way, there's 2 different versions of this. I changed it from let's hack to let me hack. And there's even version control in there to go and roll it back to the original version if I decide, no, the AI should not have done that. That is the one thing I see in AI self-healing, is that it tries to be very, very optimistic as to what it's doing. So you do also have to review the rules and say, hey, you know what? Maybe the documentation that we have, the requirements, need to be updated so that it matches what it says here. Or did somebody put in something that isn't supposed to be in there? They made some sort of change, and it's going to get reverted back in the very next release because somebody points it out and says, hey, how come you did that? But either way, AI tools do a really good job of finding what's out there and identifying it with screen captures and videos. Both of these tools do both of that. So I'm going to pause over here. There's actually a question coming in here. It says, does it tell you what it changed to? Are there logs that will tell you like, hey, this element is this, and now it is something different? Both tools actually do that. This one, Test Rigger, I'll tell you, is kind of unique in the field because it actually has no page object model. It tries to reduce all the maintenance on that by eliminating it. The way it does it is it looks at it like with fresh eyes. Every time there's a new release, it says, I want to try and find that object. Same thing with Context QA. It will actually give you a description. Let me see if I have it up. I don't have the live one up, but I can come back to that. But I can tell you that, yes, it also will give you a list. It may have been in the previous video. Let me take a look at my previous. Let's go back one. I'm going to go jump to the end because I think at the very end. This ain't the one that's got that image there, but I'm going to go. Let me just go back 1 second over here, see if I can find it. That's what I get for answering questions live. Yeah, Louisa, the answer to the question is yes. Both of these tools will tell you what changed, and you can revert back to it. So I hope that answers your question. And if I see the answer, if I see it, I will point it out because I've seen some of this before. All right, a little bit more about coding, about plain English. The big question that comes around is, what if the object that I'm working with completely changes? And there's 2 different ways that an object itself, it can change. One is that whatever the description is, like the class or the type itself, has changed to something else in the attributes. Or, thank you, Louisa, thumbs up, good. I'm glad I have to carry you there. Or the other thing that could change is the actual type of the object could change from, let's say in this case, a link to a search button. And in this case, on our playground over here, the search button is identical. It looks physically identical to the users out there. If I'm doing a coding style, I would be adding some clever coding and saying, hey, let's try ignoring any line breaks. Let's try case insensitivity. Let's do a substring match. Just look for a search. And obviously, if I do search, search is a lowercase over here, but in the text, it's capital. You can certainly find it based on search. Click search, find it by the ID, find it by the text that's in the object itself. And then in this case, the class doesn't even exist anymore. And then we've also got some garbage over here. It's a pre-processed ID. This is probably going to change every single time. Nothing we want to use to do that. But also, there's data QA in here. The developers have had an agreement with the QA department saying, this will always identify that search button over there. We are never going to change that attribute. We may mess with these guys and these guys and these guys, but if you want to work with this, that will work out fine. So coding-wise, you can you're going to end up trying to write something a little bit clever in order to add in automatic code healing, object healing on that. And I've done it. I did it in frickin' BASIC. It's a bit of a challenge. It's kind of cool, and it was a challenge. But today you've got AI. Any one of those AI things can go down there and now produce what you need to do. And in fact, here's one out of a Selenium approach. Is a Selenium approach. Here's some code. If I want to go and click on an element, but I can't find it with this XPath because this is a anchor. And I'm going to go and translate I'm looking for any class that has the text put in. I said, let me hack is in here. What if I were to get rid of the bang over there and just replace all the spaces with dashes and normal and lowercase this whole thing? There's a real good chance I could still find that element if the class changes. And over here, I'm using normalized space to basically eliminate any backslashes, ends, new line characters and stuff like that. And then I've got a try catch over here that's going through it and saying, hey, if I can't find this element the way I initially wrote it in this XPath, let's try it in a different way. Let's try, instead of a link anchor, let's try a button over here. Exact same thing. Look for any classes that have also match let me hack with dashes or underscores, whatever it is that's in your approach. And you can even do, it's a little too long to show on this slide, but you could actually do uppercase, lowercase matches. And that means putting the entire alphabet up there. Real quick click, it's a suggestion, put it into a variable and then reference the variable, the uppercase and lowercase variables on that. And then if neither one of these things, if this does work and so say, yeah, I found this object, cool, go click on it. If it doesn't, well, send out some information somewhere that says, hey, I couldn't find this. Good tip over here. Don't say I couldn't find the element. Say I couldn't find the element named the search term, whatever I passed it in. The search term came over here. I couldn't find the element. Let me hack. I couldn't find the element. Add to cart. That is a really good divider between a newbie automation engineer and an expert one, and something I learned. Like I said, 25 years. I learned it 24 years, 11 months ago. To be descriptive. And just going back, remember just a few minutes ago, I showed you that demo where the AI, it was giving all sorts of interesting additional information, and we're going to see a little bit more of that in just a moment. Why build in self-healing? Well, because a quick story, there was a project I worked on where they changed the entire underlying class. They changed it from vanilla HTML to React. Every single element I had went from link to a button. And we had 100 test cases, and 99 of them were failing. The only one that was working was the login. Usually would take us about 2 hours to get through all 100 test cases. We ran them in sequence. We didn't have parallel at that time. Tells you how far back this was. And our change of the repository, we estimated would probably take about 2 days. It was just me and another coworker, and he was just about in tears saying, we're not going to get this in 2 hours. And I said, let me come up with an idea. And I basically came up with the code you just saw on the previous slide. Was let's go, and if we get a link, let's refactor it into a button and see if you can find it and click it. In that case, those 3-4 lines of code, 10, whatever we had over there, it turned out to be, it got 94 of our test cases running and passing. That left 6 left to go. And of those 6, 4 of them were elements that trick just did not work, but that was an easy fix. 4 elements we fixed up in the repository. That took about 30 minutes. And that left 2 test cases left over, and they were bugs, which was, we detected 1 or 2 bugs every release anyway, so we were still on target, and it took us only 2 hours to get through it. So having self-healing objects built into your framework, into your tool, it's absolutely, I'd say, a necessity. But what if you didn't need to have CSS or XPath or a page object model or even code? Well, we were already kind of talking about that. Let me just tell you a little bit about the curse of code density. This is one of the things that why I've started to go into codeless or low-code automation. Here's Java to go and click on the Let Me Hack button over here, it would take 7 lines of code and 283 characters. That's time you have to type in there. In Python, it would have been 6 lines of code, 222 characters. If I'm looking at Cypress, it's 3 lines of code, 69 characters there. That's getting better. Less time writing code, more time executing it, and more time for analysis and context QA. Using an AI agent, click the Let Me Hack button. It will go and find it. That's 34 characters. And if I did it in TestRigger, click Let Me Hack, will go and find it automatically. And so it's just 1 line. The less code you have to write, the more time you have to run and analyze. So I'm starting to see that whole thing. Although it is starting to change now because we have Copilot out there, as we just saw, doing all sorts of stuff, writing the code for us and writing it fairly accurately, 80, 90, 95%. It gets smarter every single time that we're looking at it. So it's not saying that Java isn't the best way, or JavaScript. You now can actually write the code faster with an AI, and looking to see how much better you can make your code. Next thing is you can actually generate test cases from generative AI. Here is context QA, and it's going to essentially say it can create positive or negative test cases. You could say, hey, if I give it bad credentials, will it log in? Will it not log in? Can I verify that? There is a description over there. We'll talk about that in a moment. It's actually pretty good about figuring out what you might want to do, but keep in mind it's always best to have an AI an AI prompt to do this. But even just generating without the AI prompt, it's pretty smart on that. What I don't recommend is saying go and just test this site. You should have a description of what the site is, how it works, and what you expect out of it. AI just simply can't read your mind and know without having the requirements that it has. And most of these AI tools can plug into a requirements tracking tool. So it can actually read, here's what we expect, and let's go execute it based on what we see. You update the requirements. The test cases can update themselves to match whatever the current requirements is that the BA put in there. It is showing over here that it has created some test cases, logging with an empty username and password, entering special characters in the username and password. It can generate that automatically. And I'm going to go on to our next one. There's TestRigger. We're going to do the exact same thing over here by generating test cases based on AI. You can do 5 to 200 test cases out of that. You have the feature description. And as I said, you don't want to have this as your AI description. Test this site. It's not fantastic. You want to have something a little bit more descriptive, like, well, this is the Shady Meadows landing page where guests can reserve rooms. And if you put in the admin using the word login, you can actually log in with the credentials, and you should be able to create new rooms with random number, random dollar amount. This gives the AI a much better description on that. Lisa has another question. Do you know if it works with a Flutter-based website? I don't know if Context QA works on a Flutter-based website, but TestRigger does work on it. I can't mention the company name. I don't know if we've signed with them, but yes, I've actually done it with Flutter. And yes, I know the question. So what Luisa is saying, by the way, if I read between the lines, what if you got a web page that doesn't have no objects at all on your page? Well, at that point, you can do a couple of things. One, you can actually insert pictures or diagrams of this and have it identify the information like that. You could also say, click on the add to cart button using AI. You can also say, click on the AI button using OCR, optical character recognition. There's kind of a trade-off on the speed on that. However, in the company that I'm talking about, like I said, can't say their name, it was only the first 10% of the website. It was a survey that it was going through. The survey is entirely Flutter, but the rest of the site Once you got past that, it's like, okay, let's get some information. It was like just straight up React. So they were rather happy I was able to kind of show that off. It's a great question. And Luisa, if you want to, chat, look me up on LinkedIn, please reach out. I'd be more than happy to go find, if you've got a public Flutter site, I could do a live demo of that. Let me move on there. Great question. Thank you very much on the question of Luisa. So over here, I've generated 5 test cases based on the description, and it's going through and essentially opening them up, the pages. This does run in parallel. Both Context QA and the test rigger both run their test cases in parallel. People ask me like, well, what's the cost on this? I'm like, the simplest way I could say is the faster you want your results, the more parallel servers you want to purchase. And that's all I know about how test riggers. I don't want to talk about costs or anything like that. I don't know the exact costs on Context QA, but let's get back over on this. This is actually generating, the AI is figuring out how to do this. And in this case, it's actually it invented its own credentials. It said, here's the admin, but it didn't actually use it guessed what the admin password was. Admin123 won't get it in, so it will actually fail that test. But that's easy enough to fix. This one's checking to see if the B&B booking management is on there. Again, AI, sometimes it's brilliant, sometimes it's smarter than a box of rocks. So it's not the tool. It's really the AI and how much information is given to it as it's training. But over here, this one's actually working really well. It said, let me go click on that let me hack, all right? And now I am going to go and enter in the login. And by the way, I gave it the username and password immediately. And it went, okay, I'm just going to say login. I'm going to guess at it. It's just one word, login. It's nothing more than that. It's like I'm going to put an admin and password in there and click on login. I didn't write any of this. This is the AI kind of generating it out. And if I click on login, it comes back and says, hey, I'm able to interact with this. And it actually gets to the part of the site where it is showing us the credentials, the rooms where it can check in. And it's suddenly begin to enter in information into there to select radio buttons and different stuff. Again, like I said, the AI is kind of, it's not always the most brilliant thing. But the cool thing is that it's easy to edit. It's easy to change and fix up. You don't have to go through writing all that extra code to support all these things. And it works out fairly well. And I got another awesome from Lisa. Thank you so much, Lisa. All right, let's go back here. So how to train your AI. So in this case, I want to check if a home page is visible. This is in Test Rigger. That's the way you can write it. It's check home page is visible. It's the link that's on there. I would also want to check that the page contains a house using AI, and also check the single is available. Bad slide. This is supposed to be 4 lines, so my apologies on that. And then also I want to check the page contains a bed and a chair. Let me just jump back over to our link over here. This is our RESTful Booker, and we are looking for maybe a chair and a bed in there. And I also want to look for maybe a house on this page. So that's our live page, and I want to populate that stuff. Let me go back to our PowerPoint over here, and let's get this guy running. So first of all, I'm going to go click on the home page. That's what I want to do. I want to verify that we have house on the page visually, and we also want to verify that there's a single room that's available out there. And if I added more, you could actually see these. Like I said, it sticks around for 10 minutes. And then this is me writing those lines. Check if single is visible, and using AI to check that there is a house on the page and that contains a bed and a chair. The single is a standard validation. You should see that the single text is on the page. It's popped into our virtual machine up in the cloud. And it is chugging away. And what do we get? We get validation. And well, it's actually saying that it checked the house homepage is visible. It wants to click on the homepage. And I'm hoping that me switching probably, yeah, I paused the video. Oh, I'm sorry. It goes and scrolls down and is now checking to see if that house is on there. And we can go through. Yep, it highlights and says, hey, homepage was on that page. It was the only element that had the word homepage on it, so it highlighted that. And then the second thing was to check it contains house. And by the way, it combined it all. So you can see up here what the AI says. The statement contains a house is true. Why? The visual information in the screenshot has an image of a house on the top of the page, which matches the context of bed and breakfast described in the page source. I didn't write any of that. This is the AI doing it. The old farmhouse is also referenced in there, so it also supports that there should be a presence of a house. And then the second half was the visual evidence shows that a room with a bed and chair is visible in the image. It mentions that all the rooms have comfortable beds, but it's not specifically mentioning chairs. However, the visual evidence shows that there is a bed and a chair on that page. Oh my gosh. This is the level of detail that I've been trying for so many years to try to put into my automation test cases, and now AI basically does it for you. And it is amazing. And it did it in 21 seconds. It all passed, so I'm happy with all of that. Okay. And we'll go back over here. Couple things you can do with some AI stuff. This is one I kind of discovered. It was I wanted to write a test rigger line that clicks a button named add to cart. Comes back and says click add to cart. Actually, that's actually the right syntax. That's cool. But what is it? Is it Java, JavaScript, Python? Well, actually, it's test rigger's own thing. So I'm chatting with it now and saying, hey, can you add test rigger as the programming language when you're displaying these results? Absolutely. There it is. This is the format. This is the new language test rigger right over there, which is kind of cool. Our last little demo over here is the one that I like the best. I'm going over to Claude, and basically, let's say in our requirements document, it says populate the field with the first name being Paul, the last name being Grossman, the email being this, the company is that, and our job title being Automation Guru. You could go over to Test Rigger and have, or I should say, I should go over to Claude or other tools and train them on how that looks and have it write it for you. So let's go and do that. Here's our actual conference you all are attending right now. And that is where I want to put in my last name, my first name, the company, the job title, and my email address. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to paste in that text. Now, the AI may not be smart enough to translate that. So I'm going to change that into comments so I know exactly what's going on. Best thing is also document your test cases so it has that. And I'm going to paste this in over at Claude and say, hey, Claude, can you translate this into something that Test Rigger would identify? Now, the thing is, Claude doesn't really know much about Test Rigger. It's taking a wild guess at what the syntax might be, and it may not be accurate. As I say, AI is only as smart as what you trained it. I'm going to go and paste this in there. I notice that navigate to actually isn't a syntax that we use. So how am I going to train it? I'm going to tell it, hey, go learn the syntax of Test Rigger. And we're going to do this. We're going to go over to the documentation of Test Rigger. I'm going to go and click on the basic commands. I'm going to copy all of this. How much farther should I go? Halfway through, 3/4 of the way through, all the way through? Yeah, all the way sounds good. I'm going to copy all this and then go and paste it at Claude and click the submit. And it's going to come back and say, all right, yeah, I'm learning all this. Here's the syntax I can create. This is what the guide kind of looks like. This is how you can do everything. I've learned a few new things. And now I wanted to go back and say, okay, do this again. Convert the text that I gave you that came out of a document and format it in test riggers based on what you just learned. Is it smart? does it do? It actually changes the validations. Let's check that page, which is great. But the navigation is still wrong. So I have to kind of tweak it and say, okay, listen, specifically open URL is what you use for this. And check it out. Open URL is now the text that's being used. Now, when I initially grabbed this this formatted text, initially it came back with 3 different errors. One, it didn't like the way it was doing validations. It didn't like the way it was navigating. So I'm going to go and copy this over and paste this in. And now we've got the open URL. I'm going to hit add and run. Does it come back with errors? No, it says, hey, I'm going to go run that test. Pretty cool. Didn't have to write any of that. It's actually using AI to convert the English of a requirements document into what TestRigger is doing. And by the way, it has its own feature. It could actually do this itself. Either way, you can actually tell it, hey, can you interpret this, whatever it is? Which is kind of cool. I don't have a demo for that at the moment, but we'll let this chug along. And it did a little AI thing that said, reserve your spot. I didn't quite see that. It's reserve your spot now. I went, oh, the AI goes, okay, I found something close rather than reserve your spot. And it also went through, and this is in TestRigger over here. This is the screen capture. It populated my first name, my last name, the company, my fake company over there, CandyMapper. It is a testing site if you want to play around. There's all sorts of sites out there that you can play around. Please come to candymapper.net or candymapper.com. One is based on the background is GoDaddy. So it simulates a actual e-commerce site. And if you don't like GoDaddy, you like the Wix better, go to candymapper.net. It's exactly the same test site, but it is different. It's different behind the scenes stuff. So you can actually try and click different elements with different descriptions behind it and see if it actually works without having to go and update a page object model. Isn't that cool? Yeah, it's cool. All right, let me go on. I believe this is basically the end of the tips and the tricks of AI with low-code platforms, and also some stuff for developers. This is a little bit of where I'm at on X at Dark Arts Wizard. Find the Dark Arts Wizard anywhere you can find it, and I'm more than happy to do that. And I got about 10 minutes left, according to my clock, maybe. And let me take a look and see any other questions. Lisa gave me the awesome. Thank you very much. I got Tausif over there. He's saying, hey, everyone. Hey, Tausif. Nice to see you. At this point, if there's any questions, shoot those into the conversation over there. And at this point, we'll talk with Larry. And if you have any questions.
Brilliant. As always, brilliant. I was just glued there, just, watching you go through all these low code stuff. But I think we need to tell you, I'm old school. I love writing code. So
there's room for you. There's room for you. Like I said, there's JavaScript. We're not trying to get rid of all of our automation engineers.
But it makes life easier, to be honest. It makes life easier and get things done a lot faster, especially the whole concept of the whole AI element of it, where it can do that. It can do things. So that's really really good. I think what advice, I know I've asked this, but everybody using Gen AI to do all kind of weird and wonderful stuff now. But what kind of advice, do you give the new ones coming into the environment?
The advice for the new ones. Well, the major thing is that the most difficult thing doing an automation with AI is actually trying to get a good AI descriptive an AI prompt. And sometimes we just can't do it mentally ourselves. We're like, well, what am I going to do? You can actually ask almost any one of your AIs to generate a prompt to test login on this. Let me do that. And it comes up with the prompts that says here, follow this. This is what I expect to do, and then these can be used to determine, how am I going to do it? It's giving really small ones. You can actually have it be a little bit more descriptive. You can, some of these will go out to a website. You can give it the website of the RESTful Booker website, and it'll go and try and figure out a little bit more about the website. How about testing bestbuy.com? And let's see what it says about that. It's looking at valid logins, successive direction to a user. Usually it should come back and say, hey, how about searching for products? Because it's only talking about logins, because I specifically said, how do I test the login functionality? And so it's getting very wordy on this. But
yeah, it's really cool. So basically, the AI teaching, how to explain, the AI is teaching you how to write a good prompt to find what is it actually want in another AI. So that's very interesting. Yeah. So how can I ask you a question? Well, you can ask me a question by X, Y, and Z, and then you can ask me the actual question. That's good.
You can also tell these things. Pretend you're a QA automation engineer. Pretend you're an SDET, and solve this for me. Also, if you're looking for creating the requirements, you can ask it. Pretend you're a BA for this website and create some requirements based on what's there. I don't know if anyone's ever had this situation where you get into a testing thing and they're like, well, the developers create this, but we don't have any requirements. They're just, the CEO comes over to the water cooler and kind of says, I'd like to see if this can be done, but nobody's documenting the requirements to see if it's actually following something. You could actually use the AI to go, oh, can you write up some requirements that you think this actually fits, and reverse engineer it. Hopefully nobody's doing that, but it's happened to be more than once on a project.
Yeah, but I'm a user asking a question, Paul. Not cutting. I'm a user asking a question. I want to know, what AI model does test rate?
It's ChatGPT, but we are exploring other models out there. So I do know that it's ChatGPT, but we look at all sorts of different models. We also there are other tools out there that I saw asked to validate that there were 3 people in a kitchen, and it said, like I said, it was a different tool that they were doing, and it said this failed because you're expecting 3 people in the kitchen, and there were only 3 people in the kitchen. So the smarter ones go and double check and say, does that make sense? And then it tests either against itself or another AI and goes, no, it passes. It doesn't fail. Because it said literally there's 3 people in that kitchen. That's a pass. So that's the important thing on keep an eye out for AI tools that I've seen out there in the last 6 months. Something was doing that.
Okay, cool. And thank you, Paul. For this whole tips and tricks, and especially where you integrated AI into low code, and it's very good and interesting as well. And before we run off and wrap up, is there anything you want to say to all our beautiful people out there?
Buy our book. That's the thing.
I like that.
Also, check out Christian's book as well. It's the Complete Software Tester out there. That's is there something else I can say? Keep exploring. Don't be afraid of AI. Check it out. It's a brand new tool, and it's just the way that you need to play with it and learn on what it's how good it is. I always also look at it as it's like running a race, and you're starting 80% to the finish line. The last minute, and you invite them to a party. Party Wolf shows up. I don't know if that's the real name, but if it is, hey, props to your parents, man. Whoever you are.
It's really cool. Thanks for taking the time to come and do this, and as everything else, it's always good chatting with you, as we co-inhabit with each other. So it's always good to do that. And this is us wrapping up for this first test meetup for the year, and look out for the other one. And who knows, you might come, it might be you. If you want to, and also if you know that you have something that you want to share, you can also reach out to testnet.io, and you can come on and be a Paul or be a Kristen, and and share that knowledge that you have with everybody else out there. So thank you so much, Paul, for you being here, and thank you for everybody wherever in the world you are. And I would say again, good morning, good afternoon, and good night to everyone, because it's all that differently. And so from me, Larry, test automation architect, mentor, and co-author of that beautiful book with Paul, it was good having you all, and thank you.
And thank you for your help on this book, Larry. I couldn't have done it without. And by the way, thank you to Testomat.io for having us do this each month. It's been continuing on have we been doing this for 2 years, 3 years?
Yeah, that's about 3 years now. So yeah,
3 years. So if you like us, if you want to see Larry or me, come on back, like you said, every other month. Thank you so much, Larry. I appreciate it.
No worries at all. So thank you, Paul.